welcome to the channel. Tonight I'm going to be going over Yellowstone episode 9. Just a heads up right now, so I spent all day today and last night when I got off work trying to fix the sound. Something's going on with this microphone or the drivers or something, but all of a sudden my sound is kind of acting wonky. So if the sound quality is poor, I apologize in advance. Hopefully I can get it sorted out. But I am kind of behind on my videos, and this was just one more thing that kind of slowed me down. So I just said, okay, I'll just do this video with the poor audio, and I'll try to beef it up as best I can. Actually, Normie wife will be beefing it up as best as she can when she does the editing. So Normie wife does all the editing and the intro, the outro. She does it all for me, so she's awesome. Okay, so let's cut to the chase. Yellowstone. All right. Same format. We're going to be going down the checklist again, and then I'll kind of give my summary at the end. So it opens with Beth. She is in bed talking with Rip. She's talking to him about John and Rip and what happened in the cafe at the end of the last episode. She's unhappy with Rip for allowing it to happen, and Rip tells her, I either help him or I watch him do it. So it was pretty cool. That was kind of a nice line from him. So next we see John and Carter in the barn again. John wants him to saddle up a horse, and that it's time for him to learn how to ride, which, good. It's nice to see. Carter's reaction was very endearing, so I liked it. It was a good scene. And then they get going, and Carter's mouth, he's cussing like crazy, and John smacks his horse on the ass and says, I forgot how he says it. We're going to ride the fowl out of his mouth. I think that's what he said. So it was good. I liked it. It's a funny scene. And Carter's, he's pretty funny. I like him. So then we cut to the credits, and then after that we cut back to John and Carter. Now they're sitting in a field, and John is giving him sort of a history lesson on the Yellowstone, and just sort of American history in general, but specifically to that region. Another good scene. So then we cut back to the lodge, and Beth is pouring some coffee for herself, and John comes in and asks her to pour him a cup, and she says sure. She fills up a cup, and then she throws it at him when his back's turned. And then she gets on her high horse about how John getting shot was basically all about her. I'll get into that more in the summary, but that's pretty much what she does. She yells more about herself than anything else. So it was just, and she pulled her shirt down, and she's trying to tell John something, but it's just about her. It's all she talks about is me, I, me. So, and her wounds, they're so superficial now. And I just think it's very unbelievable. And then in this back and forth, John finally lets her know that Terrell Riggins was responsible for what happened, not Jamie. His reason, though, I thought was kind of silly. He says that it was because that Terrell Riggins did it to prove to his enemies that he wasn't soft. Okay, all right. I don't know where that even came from. That's the first time I can recall hearing that. So after that, John gets a collect call from Summer. She lets him know that she's in prison and that she's facing a life sentence, or up to a life sentence, for the protest. All right, and we cut to a news feed, and it's just exposition for us that the shootout that John had in the cafe secures votes for him. It was a good thing for him, to shoot out, stopping the robbers. So that is actually being watched by Jamie, Christina, and what's his name? Garrett. Sorry. And so we cut to them talking about it, and Christina thinks it's an opportunity, and that Jamie needs to be the opposite of him. She says he needs to be the pragmatic progressive. That's going to work. That's her political strategy. And then Jamie, he reveals to her in this back and forth about Garrett, because she mentions distancing herself from John, distancing Jamie from John, and then introducing Garrett as his biological father. And then he lets her know that Garrett was in prison for killing his mother, she's, obviously she has a bad reaction to that. Tells Jamie that he needs to kick him to the curb, basically. So now we see John. He's making a visit to the sheriff's office. It's the interim sheriff now, since the sheriff was killed at the end of the last episode. They have a pretty nice little conversation. John and this guy, the sheriff, we've never seen. I don't ever recall seeing him, but so I think this is the first time he's been introduced on the show. But they obviously have some history. John has some history with him. And as they're talking, John lets him know that he's there to see Summer, and he says that the sheriff tells him that she's in with her lawyer right now, so they have to ask. She has to approve that he can go in there. So as they're waiting, he tells John about the sheriff that was killed, the previous sheriff, that he kind of rags on him, just starts saying like how he was a gambling addict and an alcoholic, and he only protected people that paid him. I don't know where that came from. It was a weird thing for him to say about a character that has been on the show for so long, and now we've never seen any of this. So we'll talk more about that later. So then, he gets the call to back from the attorney or the interrogation room, whatever, and John heads on in. Summer wants to talk to him, and he gets in, and the lawyer is discussing just basically how much trouble that Summer is in. And John and she leaves the room. John and Summer have a nice conversation about how she basically needs to show some apologies. I'm sorry. I'm losing the word. I hate when I do that. Remorse. That's the word I was looking for. She needs to show remorse for her actions, and she's being stubborn. She's like, I don't feel bad for it. And she reveals in their conversation that they actually did have sex. So that was revealing, because John played it off like they didn't when he was talking to Beth about it. So he was obviously lying, because John does not disagree with her in this. He actually kind of blushes almost. And then, let's see. Oh, and then the big reveal was that Summer tells John that this was all Beth's idea, and everything that happened was her doing. John looks pissed. He says he's going to get her out of this. So then he catches up with the attorney in the hallway, and he lets her know that he's going to talk to the judge, and that the judge owes him a favor. So, all right. So now we're back to Casey. He's sitting around a fire with Rainwater and Mo, discussing this whole wolf visiting him. Apparently, this is the thing now. This is what's going on with Casey and his whole story, and Monica and Rainwater, and so I don't like where this is going, but they're sitting around basically preparing for this ritual. And Mo lets him know that the spirit animal is his spirit animal, and that he needs to go out to this specific place and spend 4 days with no food or water, and a vision. If he cries enough for a vision, maybe he'll get one. So, I mean, I'm Indian, and I don't like this stuff. Like, it just feels like a weird thing to tack on at this time in the story. So now we cut back to John. He's in a cafe, and he walks in, orders a Salisbury steak, and then he turns around, and Garrett's sitting there at the table. They have a talk back and forth about Garrett being in prison for 30 years, how Garrett believes that John put him there, and that Garrett thinks that John could have prevented it if he would have told the truth about Jamie's biological mother, which John, immediately disagrees with, says it's his fault, lets him know that he's going to be going back to prison soon. So back to Jimmy and Emily. They're laying outside under the stars, having a little romantic moment. They're having some pillow talk, and she ends up asking about Mia. Good conversation. I liked it. Their interactions are always really good. So then we cut to a rodeo montage of Travis's team, and Jimmy's there. He's watching. It was the thing about this particular montage, because they have they they have run the one into the ground. We've seen the same stuff over and over. So this montage at the rodeo was a little bit better because we saw some new shit that they do on horses. So that was one thing that was different. But it was a long montage. And it was like 2.5, 3 minutes of just straight. So now we cut to Travis. He's sitting in between his events or in between his rides. He's sitting down, sipping on a bottle. He's got a bottle of whiskey and a cup. So he's just sitting around. And Jimmy comes up on him and they talk, and he tells him some pretty interesting. Travis always has interesting things to say, and he comes off as like this kind of. He comes off as kind of like this dickhead jock almost, in a cowboy sense, but he's not an idiot. He gives Jimmy some pretty good advice. Outside of him being kind of a jerk about it, he's still pretty wise. And he tells Jimmy that, because Jimmy is giving him props for cowboying and what he's learned about what Travis said about him and the horse, and it has to be just about Jimmy and the horse and nothing else. And Travis tells him that what Travis had just did in the rodeo was not cowboying. That was just showing off. And he says that the best ride that he ever had in his life was on, he names the horse, and it was in some place in Texas on a ranch, and there wasn't a soul to see it. So, and he says that basically, the old man that told Jimmy that was right. That it's a thankless job, and no one's ever going to see you do it. Okay, so then Travis and Jimmy go to see this really expensive horse that the Yellowstone is now pitching in as their part owner. I guess it's like a $300,000 horse. And then Travis breaks the news to Jimmy that he's going back to the Yellowstone. He's going to take the horse to the Yellowstone, and his contract's up, basically. So then we cut to Jimmy giving the bad news to Emily when he gets back to the Sixes ranch. She wants to just end it quick, a few tears, and then she just says goodbye. Cut to the lodge, and it's John, Beth, Rip, and Carter. They're sitting down for dinner, and John comes in. He calls her now they're sitting at the little table that Rip suggested because Beth threw a fit about the main dining room. So John says he wants to eat he wants to talk with Beth in the main dining room because this isn't going to be a conversation that she likes. So she does her regular chest pounding shit, and then John's not even yelling at her or anything, and then she just won't stop. She's like, doing her regular shit. And then finally John loses his cool and raises his voice to her finally, and she finally will sit down and shut up and listen. And they talk about what happened with Summer, and he's basically saying rules of engagement are his rules, and we don't kill sheep, we kill wolves. And Beth doesn't give a shit. She's saying, I'll hurt anybody to defend the ranch. And so it was interesting because she makes a comment about, was this a problem because it's her and you had sex with her? And he says, did you do it? Or I'm sorry, she says, is it cruel because of what I did was to her and you slept with her? And then he says to her, did you do it because I slept with her? Because that's really screwed up. And it is. And I thought it was a good line. It was a good comeback to her. And in the end, he tells her she's got to go. He kicks her off the ranch. And once again, she doesn't have anything smart ass to say. So kind of humanizes her a little bit. She actually looks shocked and upset. So finally something phases her a little bit. So now back in Texas, we see Jimmy. He comes knocking on Emily's door, and they have a nice romantic scene. She says, tell me to wait and I'll wait. And he says, yes, wait for me. And, so they kiss. And so they're going to be a thing. They're going to do the long distance relationship thing, which is hard to do. So cut back to the Yellowstone, and we see Carter. He's playing poker in the bunkhouse with the rest of the cowboys and the cowgirls. And it's funny. He's kicking their ass in poker. So it was kind of a funny scene. It works for his character because, he carries knives. He's a little more adult and probably exposed to things that he shouldn't have been. Being gambling is one of them. So, and I know card players would say that's not really gambling, but whatever, you know what I mean? So it was nice. It was a funny scene. So now we cut to Monica, Tate, and Casey and Mo. They're prepping for the Indian ritual. that Mo says that he needs to go. Casey needs to go on. And oh wait, I missed something. That's right. Let me back up 1 second. I totally forgot. So also in that scene at the bunkhouse, Beth comes in while Carter is playing cards, and Rip's in there with him. And Walker breaks away, talks to Beth, and then she wants him to play her a sad song so that she has a reason to cry, because it's, I guess I forgot how she worded it, but essentially it's not worth crying over why she's sad, so she needs something to cry over. I don't know. I guess that was supposed to be deep in some way, but it didn't really work. So anyways, now, sorry about that. We're going to cut back to the Casey saga. I don't know. It's weird. And then they head out to this tree in the middle of nowhere. He strips down to his boxers. Rainwater and Mo take his horse, and he's inside of this little makeshift pen, if you will, but it's not like a pen to keep him locked up. It looks like Hawaiian leis, like there's different color, like long strings of leis that are surrounding him, and it's very spiritual, and that he can't leave if he wants to work out this wolf thing. And I don't know what this means. I don't know where they're going with this, and so far I'm not liking it. And that was it. Roll credits. So let's get into some of the things about the episode that I liked. The John and Carter stuff at the beginning with him teaching him how to ride. We finally see Carter on a horse. He's starting to acclimate to the things that are going on around him instead of just standing around and shoveling shit, which he did most of the season. And it's nice because I think Carter as an actor, the kid playing him, he holds his weight well with Kevin Costner, because Kevin Costner he's a well-known actor. So I think he does a good job. And I thought it was kind of funny. He talks about, because Carter cusses like crazy, and he's cussing the entire time that they're riding. And then when John says what he says about, we're going to ride, I forget how he says it. We're going to ride until the fowl is out of your mouth, or something along those lines. And it was a good line. I liked it. It was funny. And also the scene where they're sitting down after the fact and they're talking, and he's teaching Carter, and Carter is they have done a good job of writing him lines where he says things as an outsider or as a very young, naive mind that poses little questions. He thinks things are very simple, and he hasn't been exposed to like the politics and everything. So I don't know. It's kind of nice. I always like it when shows or writers do this, where they sort of have the child or just the person who's not in the conflict, and they provide that perspective, and the person or the character who is like stuck in their ways of doing things. It's nice. I always like that interaction. Kind of gives them a new perspective. All right. So the scene with John and Summer, I actually thought that was a good scene. And I actually like Summer. Her character initially, I thought I was going to be really annoyed with, but she's actually grown on me. She says really, really stupid shit that annoys the hell out of me. But her character, I mean, she does have some motivations, and at least her motivations are fairly clear. Whether or not you agree with them or I agree with them, they're still clear. So, and she sticks pretty to character. And I thought it was good when he was telling her about, you need to humble yourself a little bit. You need to put your ego aside, and you better start learning how to apologize. And he really lets her know, like, this isn't, because she's from Portland. And he's like, this ain't Portland. We're not afraid. We don't have overcrowding jails, and we're not afraid to fill them. So you better get sorry real quick, or you're going to go to prison for life, because that's what she's looking at. They're looking at like 30 years plus. So she is, I should say. And, she's still being stubborn about it, but you can tell that he's getting to her. So they have connected. It's not the best connection, but they've connected in a way. And it was revealed that, that they actually slept, they had sex. So, I mean, they do have that. But I thought it was a good scene. I did. I liked it. And I'm curious where this is going to go. Let's see. So the Garrett and John scene was the other one that I really liked. It was nice to see them on screen together, because Garrett talks a lot about John to Jamie, and he obviously doesn't like the man, has an axe to grind. It's obvious that he's using Jamie to accomplish what he wants to do, or maybe his vengeance or whatever, but Jamie is his son, and he seems to care. He genuinely does. There was a thought that I was thinking that he's just using Jamie and he doesn't care what happens to Jamie. And, it's so far they've done an okay job of making me believe that Garrett actually cares about Jamie to some degree. Maybe that all changes, but who knows? There's one more episode to go. But it was a good scene. It was a good scene between John and Garrett. I liked it. Got a little insight, a little bit of background. I wish they would have spent more time doing the things that like this. So the John and Garrett scene, the Carter and John scene, the I think it was like last episode, with Beth threw the fit about the dinner table thing, but throw that scene aside, and that them sitting around, there was a good family moment that it was nice. Rip and Carter and Beth and John were bonding over a meal, and it was very organic, and it was good to see. And I'm not saying that you can't have turmoil or whatever, but there's turmoil and drama everywhere on the show. So, you kind of need those sort of humanizing moments to give the characters something to relate to. Because and I'm speaking specifically to like Beth and Carter. Like Carter has been a wallflower for most of the season. He's just been part of the background, and they've wasted so much time getting him into an actual role on the Yellowstone. So, and then Beth, her character is she just walks around cussing like a sailor and insulting people and throwing fits like a child. I mean, they've just done a very poor job of making her a relatable person. It's more of like, this is how it's done. Let's insult anyone and make everyone uncomfortable and make everything about her. Yeah, it was nice, that scene specifically, that dinner scene. It's things like that make me care more about these characters, and I feel like the show just really drug their feet. Man, they just I'll sum up the whole season, but it just stands out when good things happen in the show right now. All I can think about is, wow, this would have been nice about 6 hours ago. So, the Jimmy and Emily scenes, I really like their scenes. They're doing great together as actors, but I've always liked Jimmy. It's good to see him actually growing into a role. Even I was rooting for him when he was doing the rodeo thing, but then he got hurt. Then he met Mia, and it was nice that I still think Mia was a great character. I liked her. I was rooting for their relationship, but it ended, and it was sad and everything, but now he's moved on. He's with Emily, so I don't know. I like their relationship, and they've done a pretty decent job of writing them strong material to work with in this sort of the courting of, man and woman, how they met, and it opened up with funny, and, they've connected really well. So I like their stuff. All right, so let's cut to the stuff that I didn't like, because that's pretty much how these episodes go. They'll do 2 or 3 things that I like, and then boom, then just totally annoy the shit out of me. So the Beth and John scene where she throws the coffee mug at him, she sounds like a fucking child, and I cannot grasp who is writing this stuff and thinking, this makes her so adult. This makes her so cool. Makes her a badass. And it's like, no, it doesn't. She throws fits like a child. And specifically with John, she's been doing this. They've really made this a thing between her and John this season. And if you put a 15-year-old or a 12-year-old in those shoes and had them act out everything, it would have made so much more sense, because all of her behavior is so childish with John. When she threw the cup and then just starts going on it, and the thing that bothered me about it the most was she was upset with John because of the cafe. He put himself at risk. He could have been shot. okay, that's okay. Her being upset about that, it's in line with her character. But the whole thing, the whole reason when she went off was her, how she felt, how it affected her, how she had to go through watching him, how she was there every day, and I was put through this, and I can't do this anymore, and I'm not going to be there next time. And it was just like, none of it was about him. It was about her and how it inconvenienced her and how it was hard on her. But it was like, the man almost died, and he technically should have, and so should have she. Whatever, we'll get to that. I'm going to get into that shit at the end of the season. It just, her whole message was me. It was the me show starring I, and it was very annoying. And it, again, super childish. So, and she doesn't say one thing about him in a good light. Like, I can't watch you go through that because I love you so much. You're my father. Or you've been a terrible father, but damn it, I love you. Something. It didn't have to be all, Dad, you're amazing. But there was nothing about him that was worth saving. Like, she talked about him and how it affected her, but she never said, like, we need you as a leader of the ranch, or I can't do this fight without you. It would have made so much more sense, and her argument would have held much more weight if she had at least said why it upset her so much, outside of how it inconvenienced her and how she was sad. It was just, I don't know. I don't know why they think that this is good stuff. It's not. It was a waste. Like, it's just all of those scenes where she's throwing fits, to me, they just bogged the show down. They bogged the pace down, because now we have to watch her freak out again and flip out again and talk about herself and cuss out somebody. It's dumb. And then the other thing too, one of the other things was the Jamie running for governor. When is he going to run? Are we to believe that he is running for governor and he hasn't had one press conference, he hasn't had one campaign meeting, he doesn't have anything? They're talking about him and Jamie, and specifically how he's running for governor and what his platform is going to be and blah blah blah. Who even knows he's running? This has all just been talk on the ranch. We've spent 3 episodes now just talk. They just sit around in the same spot. It's like they shot all of these scenes in one day, and then they just stick them in 3 episodes in a row, where they just sit around talking about how they're running for governor. Jamie's going to run for governor. When? Get to it. And then they talk about how John, and how this is going to look for John's bid for the governor run, and how they need to react to it. They are doing a piss poor job of writing this into a political race. He's not running for anything. We haven't seen it. This is literally a person sitting on his ranch talking to his ex-girlfriend and father about running for governor when he's not really running. So and the stuff that they're doing, it's just, yeah, they could be doing so much more. This really could have been impactful and a good storyline, but their execution is shit when it comes to this story. The interim sheriff, his comments about the sheriff who was killed, I can't remember his name, and that's pretty much that's the thing, is the sheriff who was killed was kind of a guy that was a character we've seen throughout all 4 seasons. He's in and out, but he's been a constant, but we never really knew who he was. We know he's not on the up and up. He's not like the clean cut sheriff trying to clean up the streets. He definitely has an agenda, but we don't know dick about this guy. And I thought the interim sheriff's lines about how he was a gambling addict and an alcoholic, that would have been a cool side story. We could have seen that. We could have seen him get into trouble, and the characters haven't moved. They just really haven't. When I stop and think about it, it's like, well, yeah, this guy's I've seen the sheriff on this show since the beginning of season 1, I believe. Yeah. And we just don't know anything about him. The only time we ever see him is in his uniform interacting with the Duttons on something, and then he disappears again. So I felt like that line, I know it was brief, but that line that the interim sheriff threw out there, I was like, that would have been really great to know. I mean, that would have been cool to see. It's like, yeah, I don't know, what a waste. And the other thing too is the last thing was the Indian ritual stuff. So what it sounds like to me is they're saying that he has PTSD and now he has to do this ritual and he's seeing a wolf because of it. They have done a poor job of establishing that because we haven't seen Jamie suffer from anything that resembles PTSD that I can recall. Now, I know I have forgotten things about this show because it's been so long, but man, I don't recall that, and I feel like they're pushing it. I feel like it's come out of left field, and it gives Rainwater and Mo something to do. They have shit to do. Rainwater runs the tribe. The tribe against the Duttons was a big part of why I like this show, and that they have just completely taken the tribe off the table. Rainwater is just this character off to the side who shows up and talks to people and has his cool voice and says some cool lines and then disappears back. Mo shows up with his badass hair and his, stoic, Indian face and just, does some cool shit, and then he fades away. It's like, man, I just wish they would have done something with them. Where's Jackie and Rainwater's alliance? Nothing yet. So overall, the episode had its ups and downs. I don't feel like we're heading toward this. This was the penultimate episode, so this next episode's the last one, and I don't feel like we're heading to some big showdown. I don't feel like it, so we'll see what happens. I'm gonna watch it, but this episode, again, I think, what was it, 7? So 7 was the episode I thought was the good episode so far, was the standout episode. Since then, episode 8, now episode 9, they've been okay. There's, like I said, it's ups and downs. It's a lot of give and take with this show, and I wish they would. It's so easy in my mind. There's so many things they could have done, just simple things that would have made it much more enjoyable to watch so far. So, all right, I've talked long enough. I'm going to cut you loose for the night. Thank you for stopping in and watching the video. Click the subscribe button if you would, please. And if you think somebody might like this video, share it with one of your friends. Other than that, you have a great night, and I will talk to you later. Bye.